Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of our webinar series, TP Talks. I am your moderator, Amit Shankadas, Executive Vice President of Market Engagement for Teleperformance. And for this TP Talks, we'll be curating the conversation with eminent industry analysts, Katrina Menzigian with Everest Group, and Juan Gonzalez with Frost & Sullivan. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is designed to be very interactive. If you have any questions for the participants, please use the Q&A widget on the left of your screen. You can do this anytime during this webinar. We will address questions towards the end of the session. There are also several related resources for you to view and/or download in the resources widget, which is also to the left of your screen. Please feel free to register for the next TP Talks, also in the same widget. If you have any technical issues, please click on the help icon at the bottom of your panel. First and foremost, what is TP Talks? As curators of the customer experience, Teleperformance has created a series of TP Talks to help you curate an exceptional experience for your company. It is intended to help you learn from best practices, big trends, innovations, and real-world success stories from people just like yourself. A little bit about Teleperformance. We've been partnering with leading brands for almost 4 decades, supporting our clients in 160 markets around the globe. We support programs across a myriad of verticals and channels of interaction. So whether it's customer care, customer acquisition, technical support, digital solutions, analytics, back office, we help our clients curate an experience that is outstanding and differentiating. And it is with this commitment to excellence that we've organized this webinar. The placement by industry stalwarts in industry leadership quadrants, recognition by our clients in particular to help them curate their customer experience and make a palpable difference to their brand, is the manifestation of our mission to help transform passion into excellence. Talking about industry stalwarts, we are honored to have 2 of them with us today on this webinar. Juan Gonzalez serves as the Research Director within Frost & Sullivan's Digital Transformation Business Unit. He focuses on contact centers, BPO, unified communications, and collaboration solutions. Juan has over 11 years of experience in the industry and has managed strategic consulting projects and regional intelligence studies, as well as monitoring in emerging trends, technologies, and market dynamics. Katrina Menzigian, Vice President of CX Research at Everest Group, is a market research and consulting professional with extensive experience in this industry. Her areas of focus include BPO best practices, evolving market dynamics, trend analysis, supplier strategies, and buyer requirements. Katrina leads a team of analysts dedicated to delivering a deep understanding and dynamics shaping the global contact center industry. Welcome, Juan and Katrina, and thank you for your participation on this webinar. So, with that brief introduction, let me set a little bit of the context for what we will be talking about, and it starts with the change and disruption we're facing in our customer service, customer management environments. Today's customer is mobile, is digital, is connected, and quite honestly seems to have found the fountain of youth, social media. Customers are interacting with us more than ever before. In fact, 65% of all searches from Google today originate on mobile devices and result in web visits or calls. Virtual assistants like artificial intelligence self-service bots, when integrated with humans, provide an engaging platform for support. Data security, huge issue, the availability of data to better service our clients and their customers, the security issues around it. This word cloud on the right represents the new reality we live in today. I thought it would be interesting to look at some findings from the Teleperformance Customer Experience Lab, fondly called the CX Lab, to kick off this discussion. In 2016, we surveyed 130,000 consumers in 11 countries across 15 vertical sectors. The proliferation of mobile devices and social media has forever changed the way with which we communicate, interact, and engage with consumers, or should I say, in the way that consumers engage with us. And whilst voice continues to be the most used and preferred channel of interaction, as you see on the slide, 60% of consumers surveyed preferred voice, we see that 73% of consumers also use digital channels such as click-to-chat, bots, social media, video. As you see in your environments, these digital channels coexist along with voice. And it's evidenced by the fact that 51% of customers said they use voice along with digital channels. And it is with this context of usage of multiple channels, digital channels, that I'd love to ask the first question of Katrina. And Katrina, from your perspective, what can companies do now to help prepare themselves for this digital channel, these digital channels of interaction?
Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Amit, for the introduction and for setting up the context for our conversation today. I think this question of what do we do now to be prepared for the change that is affecting our industry at so many levels and from so many directions is one that many organizations are asking. And the reality is that every organization needs to have a realistic view of where it's at today across the three key dimensions that make up any solution: the people, the process, and the technology. And different organizations are currently at different levels of maturity, which means they'll have different starting points as they pivot from their current operations to a more digitally enabled operation, as they pivot towards more use of automation and, as your slide implies, digital labor. But none of that is possible, in my opinion, and in my experience, without having a thorough appreciation of where you're at today. So a realistic inside-out view of the skill and a mapping. I would suggest getting into exercises that map your current skill sets and then identifies what possibly will be the skill sets that you need going forward in order to become effective in a digital strategy. And those are the skill sets not only for your agents and your customer-facing staff members, but all of the managers and the technology people that support that work. Similarly, processes. Are your processes siloed? Are they channel-centric? Are they about what operational needs you have, or are they looking at customer experience from the perspective of the customer? And if you take that perspective, what are the things you need to do to map to that future state? And similarly, do you have the technology in place? Whether it's channels of communication or it's having the ability to integrate data sets about those customers across those channels, or do you have your processes optimized for the channels in which you think you're going to be effective for business? So the technology and the technology skills are needed. So those are three areas which are traditional ways of thinking of the business, are I think where most organizations need to start and have a realistic view. But I think Juan probably has a piece of this that I'm not thinking about that he might actually kind of add to the conversation.
Thank you, Katrina, and hi everybody. Thanks Teleperformance for inviting us to participate on this chat about curating the CX. So on top of the shift and the changes we are seeing on our industry, I think it's very valuable to mention the fact that there is also a shift in power from business to consumers. And this has made many business leaders realize that they need to start to put and to place the customer experience first on the list of their strategic priorities. We have been able to see that actually there are three important considerations that companies have to consider when it comes to customer experience, which are actually the 3C of customer experience. The first one, or the first C, is context. So this will allow companies to provide a foundation for communication and understanding. So provide context to what the customer is trying to say to us. Know just about every relevant detail of what the customer is trying to share with the company. So This, of course, means having access to all the data that is necessary and relevant to the customer experience, and this also includes everything that has been collected during previous interactions with the customers. So that is the first C, context. But also we need to understand that customer service communications that lack context will lead to messages which are virtually meaningless. The second C is continuity, and I need to say here that continuity is a requirement for effortless communications. Without continuity, communication naturally slows down and the context needs to be repeated and confirmed. And the last one is convenience. Convenience is something that we humans always appreciate and we have always strived for in whatever we do. So we just simply appreciate convenience. That being said, in customer service, knowing about what the customer specific circumstances are, the context, and applying that knowledge through the customer journey, continuity, will naturally result in ease of doing business, convenience, which will be the ultimate goal of any business today.
You know, Juan, what's interesting when you talk about convenience, we asked in the survey, we asked everybody, do you prefer to be answered by a real person or a virtual assistant? And we found that, as illustrated in this diagram, we found that 78% on average across the globe of people preferred interacting with a human. And in fact, by the way, this skews generationally, as you see, but even with millennials, 74% of millennials preferred human interaction. I'm wondering then, when you look at this factor between convenience, the human interaction, and how it all plays out, Juan, from your perspective, where does the human interaction play into this equation of convenience, of providing exceptional service, of being where a consumer wants to be?
So we believe that actually human are certainly key in the equation. So when you take a look at what or how are our communications today, we certainly need to be honest with us and say that we humans are at some points at our limit, right? We certainly need to augment our capabilities to handle the massive increase in the volume, speed, and complexity of the data. And how we can do that? With automation or with bots. So bots are designed and programmed to react in a prescribed way to data inputs. The data will be fed and it's fed into artificial intelligence systems, and then these bots will respond and take action as programmed. So yes, I do believe that automation is crucial for productivity, but also I do believe that automation tools are only effective if are leveraged intelligently by humans. So my key stake on this one is automation is key, but humans are irreplaceable.
Katrina, from your perspective, as you look at, you talk about people as part of the people process technology, and I know, when you talk about people, you're looking at both the customer, the consumer, and what their wants and needs are, and on the other end of the equation, the agent and what their wants and needs are. What's your perspective on this equation between humans and automation?
Yeah, I think the reason we have searched for solutions that go beyond humans, of course, a lot of it's been about efficiency and it's been about cost, right? But at the end of the day, we are human, and we find that we crave human interaction that's meaningful. And where we've reached as a society, and societies around the world, is that we've adjusted to various kinds of information and communication happening across multiple channels. So some channels are much better suited for the exchange of information and around, defined responses that we've all become accustomed to, right? We use text in our everyday lives to communicate details and information that are critical, and we move our work forward. Yet, when we want to have a more complex, a more meaningful conversation, we often end up talking to a human. And the opportunity that we have in the customer experience space is to now make those human interactions perhaps fewer, but certainly more impactful. So that when the conversation gets to a human, the human has the necessary information and context. You know, Juan brought up a very good point about context and consistency, and he used a different word. It was a C word, but it implied effort, right? The effort. So that when you are finally talking to a human, it is an impactful and productive experience. So it is that smarter use of technology that we've been striving for is now more of a possibility. And that balance between the kinds of, and this is where getting back to mapping your processes becomes important, because then you can clearly look at what portion of your processes can be handled across each of these channels. And it should be a selection based on optimal outcomes as opposed to where can I drive cost out, right? We've tried to push a lot of things to IVRs historically that haven't been as productive or as successful. Now we have the opportunity to have smarter IVRs as well as smarter humans through the technology that's available to us now, as well as the fact that society's evolved. We are comfortable using these non-voice channels as well as voice channels. So it's truly an environment of blended experience.
And I think, it's interesting, both of you hit on a very interesting piece of technology not only being used to enable a consumer to contact a contact center, interact with a company better, but also enable an agent, the individual sitting on the other side of the interaction, to provide better service and better. So that's the piece of context, continuity, and convenience. One of the interesting things, as I mentioned earlier, people use both voice and digital channels interact interchangeably or concurrently sometimes. And in fact, one of the questions that we started to look at is, as I think both of you alluded to, some of the simpler, maybe transactional interactions happen through automation, and as you said, Katrina, the fewer but more meaningful conversations happen through a voice or human interaction. Interestingly, we also found, as you can see on this slide, that there's a strong correlation between advocacy and the number of channels used. The greater the number of channels used, the greater the advocacy of that consumer. And it stands to reason, because that, I think, demonstrates to some extent, or to a large extent, an engaged consumer. So we live in this world where we know consumer expectations, I think you both alluded to this, have changed, have increased. We live in this world where there is a piece that you have to find the right human interaction layer. We live in a world where consumers are using multiple channels of interaction. So, Juan, maybe I'll put this one to you first. From your perspective, what are companies doing now, and what have you seen companies do? You study a variety of companies, both of you do. What are you seeing companies do now to adapt to this omni-channel need?
So certainly we are seeing the industry moving toward omni-channel CX. Whether this is happening with a different speed according to verticals, certainly that is something we can discuss, but there is no question to this transition. We are seeing, of course, in this movement some challenges, but also areas for improving as well as opportunities. So one area where we see areas for improvement is certainly the one that we refer to as multimodal support. This means allowing customers to use multimedia capabilities as part of the same interaction. An example will be starting a co-browsing or video chat session in the middle of a web self-service or chat interaction. Another key omnichannel capability we see companies are implementing is seamless channel escalation, particularly if and when the customer chooses to escalate from a self-service channel to an assisted service environment. Another step in the evolution of the omnichannel CX capabilities is customer journey orchestration based on customer intelligence and business rules. Here, the goal will be to optimize the customer experience and the value to the company, and also be able to deliver more personalized and effortless customer experiences. Omnichannel also, I believe, that opens up opportunities to rethink which are the CX metrics that we need to implement, with a new and revitalized emphasis on seamless and more personalized customers' interactions and journeys. And finally, I do believe that we see the agent desktop interface getting a major facelift allowing agents to be much more better support and much more better supporting the omnichannel CX. So certainly this will help to drive greater customer success and also agent success. Katrina, what are your thoughts on this one?
We might have lost Katrina.
I'm sorry, I was on mute and I forgot to take myself off of mute. So that's my operator error. What I was saying is that I think Juan does a nice job of outlining, what's the opportunity here and where can we see omnichannel create value. But some of my conversations sort of reveal that a lot of organizations are continuing to struggle with sort of where do they begin launching themselves onto this omnichannel path. And they're pulled in multiple directions with multiple initiatives that require their funding priority and their focus and their resource priority. So what I find a lot of organizations are doing today is beginning by assessing sort of what exactly are they doing today well that they should continue building on, and where are their biggest gaps. Most organizations have a intuitive sense of that, but often find that if they take a thorough analysis of their operations, they may be finding things that they didn't anticipate. And so, that is one area where I think a lot of organizations need to think about is sort of, where are we well positioned today and what are our areas that need additional investment. I think the other thing that companies are doing today is understanding sort of how to realign the leadership and the workflows in their organization to be able to optimize an omni-channel workflow. So many times, contact centers are organized by channel, staff is organized by channel, leadership and team management is organized by channel, and all of that tends to be inside the contact center. Whereas we have to think about the fact that depending on the vertical industry you're in, your omni-channel strategy may, of course, need to integrate across all of those remote contact center-based channels, but then perhaps a big part of your customer experience is outside the contact center, in a retail location or some kind of face-to-face process, transactional process, desktop environment. And so then you have to ask the question, how do I link what's happening in my contact center with what's happening in those areas and that whole face-to-face experience? So again, if we look at what companies are doing today and what they need to do to reach the vision that Juan outlined, I would say kind of understanding what's going on with those channels is a good place to start.
It's interesting, Katrina, as both of you go through this, one of the pieces that you pick up on is it's not easy. There's a lot of moving parts. You got to understand where you are. You got to understand where your consumers want to be. You have some legacy infrastructure environments. You have maybe siloed organizations, sometimes maybe, and to your point, by channel. So how do you get your arms around this? And I think if we think of ourselves as curators of the customer experience, we think of white glove treatment, of being a guide, of being experts in our products, of having insights into our business, of caring for and treating each individual as a person. One option is leveraging a service provider that can break down some of these silos, streamline, that has some of these platforms, processes, technology in place, where as a curator of the necessary interaction channels, infrastructure, solutions, underpinned by governance and resilient infrastructure, there's a play that these folks could make. And I'm curious from your perspective, Katrina, maybe we start with you first on this, is how can companies use a partner to help them on this journey?
Well, I think contact center service providers and the clients that they serve have an opportunity to rethink a number of areas of their engagement. Of course, all of this has to happen while customers continue to be served. So there's no getting around the reality that you have a business to run today. But the opportunity here is for clients to look to their service provider for their broader perspective of the marketplace that often we can't have exclusively on our own. it's that outside-in view that is what enterprises should be demanding from their service provider. It's the view of what have you done similarly across my vertical industry for my peers and competitors that I need to know about or that you think would help me up my game. It is what technological expertise can you bring to me that I'm expecting you to share based on your experience. It's also realizing that your customers are evaluating you based on their last best customer experience, no matter what industry that was in, no matter what context it was in. They're learning about, every day they're learning about whether a customer experience is good or bad, and somebody else out there is reinventing that customer experience. And they're going to come back and say, oh, well, why can't this company do what I just experienced over there? And your service provider partner can help you have your eyes and ears out in the marketplace of what are those other things that other people are doing that I should be aware of that I don't have time to do the research and to dig around for. And so it's having that, looking to your service provider not simply as an operational entity, but as an entity that has expertise and perspective that they can bring to you as well, and to ask for it. Not expect it to happen proactively every time. You know, go ahead and ask for it and set that expectation if you can, and if you're ready to do that. That would be, I think, one of the most valuable elements of this new generation of customer care experiences in the marketplace.
That's good insight there, Katrina. Juan, from your perspective, what would you add to what Katrina just went through?
So what I need to, or what I'd like to say here is that actually we need to consider that the digital era or era is also the era of partnership and multi-industries convergence. That means that tech industry, service industry is increasingly more competitive, but also much more unsustainable than before, as is facing constantly new challenges and new market forces. So I do believe that in this increasingly competitive scenario, and in certain regions of the world, which is also restrained by the economic crisis, companies certainly should assess their cooperation relationships, alliances, and acquisitions to make much more effective monetization of the emerging opportunities. That being said, I think that right now enterprises globally within the outsourcing arena are in two camps or in two fields. So there are some companies that are actually embracing that digital is the future, and they are currently investing in their digital competences, meaning that they will do most of this digital transformation beginning from home or internally. But there are others actually that said, hey, we don't have these strong digital capabilities. How can a partner help? And ideally, I believe that a leading provider should be able to play on both grounds.
Great, thank you, Juan. And with that, we come towards the tail end of this webinar. I do want to remind everybody that you can download the Curating the Customer Experience ebook on the widget towards your left. You'll find questions that were asked today, the responses that we received, additional insight in this ebook. It is full of such questions and answers. With that, I'd like to take a few questions. We had several come through. I will throw this one out there very quickly. We have a couple of minutes for these questions, and for those that we are not able to respond to, we will respond to via email. So this first one is rather interesting. It says, with the introduction of natural language speech platforms to replace traditional IVR, chatbots, technology-assisted human-agent interactions, are consumers signaling any dissatisfaction with companies for using more automation, less human? Juan or Katrina, I'll throw it out to both of you. Your perspective there?
Well, I think the end of the day on any of these automation technologies, whether they're designed to replace voice or to create new functionality, or even non-voice self-service mechanisms, it all comes down to how effective the experience is, how much effort is required, and does the client get to the end goal that the customer get to the end goal that they were looking for. And so satisfaction, I think, only occurs when the experience is unsatisfying and the outcomes are not what they were looking for. So I don't think people have a philosophical issue with self-service. It's when the self-service isn't satisfying that it becomes an issue, and people assume a person would have been able to help them better. So am I seeing that? I'm seeing mixtures of it. I'm seeing cases where people are quite satisfied. They love using the chat boxes. They love using the visual IVRs. And then there are cases where if it's not done well, it doesn't reach the level of satisfaction they were seeking.
Want any difference in that or another opinion there?
I think that Katrina mentioned quite clearly. I mean, the most important is how you will get to have what the customer is asking for done. You know, so certainly there will be some moments of doubt during the process, but if the automation of certain processes helping to solve customer issues on a better and more faster way, certainly this will be a huge win for the industry.
Great, thank you both. And we have several other questions. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We do try to keep these webinars to our 30-minute TP Talk schedule. An on-demand version of the webinar will be available in about a day's time. Feel free to access that, forward to your colleagues. There's another TP Talks coming up on the 14th of August. As I mentioned, feel free to register for that. If you haven't downloaded the assets, do so. We will reply to those questions that were submitted. There's several of them via email. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please reach out to us, to any of your counterparts at Teleperformance, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation. With that, I'd like to thank Katrina and Juan for your participation, your insights into this conversation, and look forward to speaking to and interacting with all of you again on another TP Talks. Thank you, everybody.